Good morning. This webinar offers closed captioning. To enable closed captioning, click on the live transcript button on the bottom of your screen and choose your preferred method. Welcome to the City of Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection webinar. Please note any website or email that I mention will be posted in the chat box. For those seeking business licensing assistance, you can visit the Small Business Center at City Hall on the 8th floor or call 312-74-GO-BIZ. Also, business licenses can be applied for or renewed online at chicagobusinessdirect.org. If you are part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, you can get credit for joining this webinar by sending an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. If you want to learn about the program, please visit chicago.gov/businesseducation. Also, this webinar is being recorded and will be available at youtube.com/ChicagoBACP. I will post the mentioned information in the chat box. We encourage attendees to ask questions. Please use the chat box to send your questions. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. Please note that the views, information, and opinions expressed during this webinar are solely those of the presenter and do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection or the City of Chicago. Today's webinar will be Navigating Your Cash Flow, presented by Chase for Business. Turning it over to Savannah.
Good morning and welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for spending your Friday morning with us. My name is Savannah Boren, and I'm a senior business consultant here at Chase. Part of our work through our racial equity commitment is to work with diverse women, veteran, and LGBT plus business owners to help them navigate and help their business grow and thrive. One of the topics we often speak on is navigating your cash flow. Like the introduction said, if you are concerned about your cash flow, you are not alone. This is a frequent topic, especially since the events of 2020. Today, we're going to look at how to increase cash in and decrease cash out, and ultimately maximize the success of your business. Thank you again for attending today. And with that, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Roy Nunez.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Hopefully everyone's having a great morning. My name is Roy Nunez. I am also a senior business consultant here at Chase. I've actually worked for Chase over 22 years. I've held various roles with our bank, and I'm very excited here to be part of this webinar here, Navigating Your Cash Flow. With that, I'll turn it back over to my colleague, Savannah.
Great. Well, we will go ahead and get started today. If we can begin with the next slide. We can go down again. So here we go. So cash flow is the fuel that keeps your business running smoothly, right? So cash is the gas in your car. Cash is what helps us keep the lights on, keep our employees paid, and really the timing of cash and ensuring that we have it on hand when it's necessary is what makes our business successful. We could have a great number of sales, but if the cash isn't available and liquid at the minute that we need it, our business could ultimately close. And on the next slide. Again, we'd like to reiterate, success depends on making sure the cash is there when you need it. We've all run into situations where the cash isn't available. We get told things like the check is in the mail, a contract hasn't been paid out just yet. We have too much inventory on hand, and unfortunately our landlords and our creditors don't want to take our products as payment. So success really does depend on making sure that the cash is there and liquid when you need it. With the next slide. This is really a gut check. So this presentation today, you'll probably hear us say references a few times. It's part of an overall larger presentation that we regularly do in person. But since we're here today together via Zoom, this is really a gut check for you. How confident are you that you have the cash to bridge a 1-month closure of your business? Unfortunately, this has become a reality over the last few years. So how confident are you that you would have that cash that would need to keep the lights on, keep the lease or mortgage paid, keep the employees on payroll. And you can kind of gut check for yourself there from very worried to very confident. And we hope that by the end of this presentation, you will move at least 1 or 2 notches up in that scale. And then the next slide, we'll review what we'll be covering today. So we're going to go through 4 different parts. So there's the cash flow basics. So we all have kind of the general level set knowledge of what cash flow looks like. We're going to talk about maximizing cash in and how to get your cash in. Part 3 is covering minimizing the cash out. And that doesn't mean that you're not paying your employees or you're not paying your bills, just the timing and structure of how cash is leaving your business, and then ultimately making that cash work for you. So Roy, I'll let you start with our cash flow basics.
Thank you, Savannah. Next slide, please. So before we begin, again, interesting survey here. 50% of small businesses are operating with fewer than 15 cash buffer days. Important here, as we know, cash buffer days are that money that you have available if money was to stop coming into your business for your business to continue operating. We're often asked the question, well, how many days is enough? And I would like to say that the more the merrier. If you can have 15 days and then work on improving that to 30 days, to then 60 days, to 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, that's the idea, is to have as much cash buffer days as possible. Next slide, please. So cash buffer days will help you shelter from a storm or storms that actually happen. Just imagine unexpected expenses happening, equipment breaking down, and you ask yourself, well, how am I going to be able to pay for this? And so again, having cash buffers is going to help you with that particularly. Next slide, please. So there are 3 basic types of cash inflows and outflows. They are operating, investing, and financing. So breaking these down, the operating, that's pretty much cash that's collected and spent to support your main activities of the business. For example, when you sell a product or a service, that's cash inflow. Just by way of reminder here, cash inflow is money collected, not, you've got a contract that you're waiting on getting paid. It's money that's directly in your account. And then outflows would be just things that you need to keep the business running, like, paying the lights, market your product, pay your employees. Basically, as I mentioned, anything that's going to keep the business running. On the investing side, the cash that's collected, spent on long-term investments. Example of that would be money that you spend collecting on rent. If you have a space and you're renting part of that space, that would be an investment inflow. This is not so common. Now, on the investment outflow, this is a little bit more common. That's money that you spend on purchases for your building, purchases on new equipment. And on the financing side, that is cash collected or spent on loans, dividends, or equity. For example, if you sell ownership stake in your business, that would be a financing inflow. An outflow would be loan payments you're making on your business loans. Next slide, please. So Chase has a wonderful tool here, our business cash flow tool. We will recommend everyone on this webinar watching to try it. You can access this by going to chase.com/cash flow analysis. Or we did provide a worksheet here, a workbook, and you can find that worksheet on the workbook, pages 5 through 6. So next slide, please. So if you decide to undertake this exercise, you will see here, you're first going to be looking at the inflows of the business. And as you are looking at this, you're going to be able to categorize the inflow. You're going to be able to provide a description of the inflow. You're going to be able to provide a frequency of payment of that inflow, when the date you're going to be paid, in the amount. And you do that successfully for all your inflows, and then you hit continue. Next slide. You will now be able to enter your outflows. And so again, with the outflows, you're going to be able to categorize the outflows, the description of that, the frequency, the date, and the amount. So for instance, payroll, if it happens every week, then that's pretty much what you list out, the frequency and the amounts by which the payroll comes out. Then you're going to hit continue to compare. Next slide, please. And then with this here, you're going to be able to see results. Results are going to help you perhaps forecast as a forecasting tool. If you look at the actual output here, you'll see the green bars show the inflows and the red bars show the outflows. And that line that's going up is showing the balances that should be translating into your account. So in this case, these two first inflows help the balance on your account, on that account, to rise pretty quickly. And then as you can see, successively each month, those balances have gone up. So again, you can see this as a tool that's going to definitely help you forecast. Now we'll leave that for homework. Again, you'll try this with your worksheet once the presentation is over. And so I'll pass on the baton over to my colleague, Savannah, to continue. Savannah.
Great, thank you. Yes, so on the next slide, we'll start reviewing how to maximize the cash into your business. And we can advance again, like 2 more slides. Great. So over the next few minutes, we're going to identify 4 ways to make the most of your business opportunities. So any successful business has to be focused on getting money in the door, right? Money in the door, increased revenues, wonderful measure of success, especially when you're talking to a banker. We're always like, higher revenues, perfect. So getting higher revenues, it really does require a mix of creativity, knowledge, and organization. So on the next slides, we'll start looking at these 4 different opportunities to increase the cash in the door. Step 1, know your competition. You should absolutely know your competition. You need to know your direct competition. You need to know your aspirational competition. You need to know your knockoff competition. You need to know all the competitors that are playing in the same space as you. On the next slide, we can also talk about how has the competitive landscape changed in the past year? How has it changed in the past 2 years? How do you see that changing in the future? Have you considered any sort of black swan risk like COVID or civil unrest that we've seen happen in the last few years? What does that look like in the future? How can you remain competitive during these sort of once in a lifetime situations that we've been experiencing? Ultimately, the digital transformation we're all experiencing is changing how business gets done. That's just a result of an advance in technology, but also a change in the climate and the way that the world is operating in these times. Customers expect more digital options for shopping and interacting with you. So if you haven't had an online presence, but all of your competitors do, take a look at that. Think about what that means for you. On the next slide, we're going to review, another piece of homework that's going to be in the workbook that will be distributed. Here, it allows you to kind of take some time, look into your competitive analysis, figure out your competitors. It'll guide you through how to identify them and how to analyze and synthesize that information. So we'll go on the next slide. And this is a further review of kind of what you'll get out of analyzing and synthesizing the information. When you take a closer look, when you do receive this information in the workbook, you'll be able to list your competitors and rate them based on value and price. Don't forget to fill in the same information for your business as well. And once you enter all the information, you'll see a grid that shows how your business stacks up with others in the terms of value and price. And then on the next slide, we'll start with, focus area number 2, segment your customers. We often hear, everyone's my customer. I can guarantee you that is not the case. Not everyone is your customer. Not everyone is your target customer or your ideal customer. So with the next slide, we'll start talking about how to segment and review and analyze your customer base. Because, knowing your customers so that you can more strategically build loyalty and expand your base. So we're all about expanding customer base, because once the customer base is expanded, that does traditionally relate to increased revenues and maximizing your cash in the door. On the next slide, we'll start talking about this is another worksheet. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. So this is another piece of the workbook that you can utilize. You're getting a lot of homework today. I hope you have no plans this weekend because you're getting a lot of homework. This is going to help you get through. Take the time, invest in yourself, invest in your business, take the time, do these worksheets. Think about who your customers are, right? So like I said, not everyone's your customer and no one wants to hear that. So think about who your target audience is and who your customer truly is. On the next slide, we will begin our analysis of our customers. So there's a few different types of customers. And when I think about this, I think about how I shop, how I procure goods, how I procure services, and where do I fall in these categories? I think once you put yourself in the consumer's shoes and your daily spending habits and your life habits, I think that helps make this more relatable. So for example, we're going to start here with the best customers. When they shop with you, they spend a lot, right? We love those customers. When they are there because they want to be and because they have a high ticket amount. So for each of these next few customer types that we talk about, we're going to really ask ourselves 3 different questions. What types of people typically fall into this customer category? What sales goals can you set for these customers? Could you say to yourself, I'd like to have 10% more of these best customers by the end of this year, by the end of this quarter? In what ways will you reach out to these customers? What is it that would be appealing that you can do to stay in front of these customers, to market to these customers, and to really get them to stay one of your best customers? When we're looking at our best customers, we ideally want to know everything about them. We want to know their age, gender, perhaps an idea of their general income or wealth. Do they have kids? Do they have pets? Are they in the city? Are they in the suburbs? Where are they coming from? Do they go out of their way to come to us? Or are they coming to us because we're on the corner of their street? We want to know as much as we can so we can really tailor to what they're looking for. Because again, when they shop with you, they're spending a lot. So we're looking to maximize those ticket amounts. And then we'll go to the next slide and we'll look at the sustaining customer. So now this is interesting. They don't spend a lot, but they shop frequent and they are loyal. So maybe it's smaller items that they're purchasing, but they're doing it frequently. Maybe they are doing it for convenience. Maybe they're doing it because you're the only one who has that item or that service that they're looking for. So they're not high ticket spend, but they are loyal and they keep coming back and they come back frequently. So again, you've got to ask yourself the questions around their type and their spending habits. So who are they? What are they doing? Why are they coming to you? Is it convenience? Is it a niche market? What goals can you set for these customers? Could you try to attract more frequent, low spending customers? And in what ways will you reach these customers? They are in your place of business frequently, or they're interacting with you frequently. So how can you ensure that they continue to come back frequently and often? The next slide is really just an interesting customer, I think. So the lookalike customer. Who is it that looks like your best customer, but they're going elsewhere? If you're running a coffee shop and this is your target demographic in this neighborhood with this age gap, why are they going to Colectivo or Starbucks or Dunkin'? What is it that you could differentiate in your business to draw that customer back over? Because then you're increasing your customer base and your revenues because you have someone that you're already, a segment that you're already working with that's working out successfully. What can you do to get the others in that segment to now choose your business, your service, your products? And again, I know I've said this a few times, but really think about those 3 questions when we're talking about each of the customer types. And then the next slide, we'll review our final sort of type of customer. That's the aspirational customer. That's the customer that we want. That's the customer that's going to change your business. It's going to take it to the next level. If you're selling clothing items, is that customer a celebrity or an influencer? Would getting them to wear your baseball cap or shirt, or tag you at your bakery, would that then change the level and the draw and the attention that your business is getting? So zero in on that customer that's going to take you to the next level. If you're selling to a business, is that a big box store? Would having a contract with a Target or Costco or Walmart, would that be your next level? Is that going to help your business accelerate? Or, is your item a boutique retail item? Is that next customer the new people that are moving to the community, and you need to zero in on them and trying to get new business from that? Really think about who it is that is your next big target, and focus in on how you can get them to start being a person that's shopping or in your business or utilizing your services. The next slide talks about what new insights have you discovered recently about customers. So this is different. Everyone says it, right? There's been the pandemic, there's been civil unrest. Now we're in a time when there's inflation and gas prices and more people starting their own businesses and less employees, and just so many factors that are impacting the world around us. So what insights have you discovered about your customers? What is it that they're wanting now that maybe they didn't want in 2019, 2020, 2021? Or even if we go back, if you started your business years ago, 2015, 2000. So what insights have you discovered about your customers that's going to help you attract, retain, and grow your customer base? The next slide will talk about the value of segmentation. So segmentation, once you've identified the different segments, you can tailor your communications, reward loyalty, and identify new audiences. So once you realize who your customer really is, you can tailor your communications. Does your customer want to be texted? Do they prefer mail? How do they like to be interacted with? You can also consider reward loyalty. Lots of places have loyalty programs. I'm a consumer too, right? Do I go to places where I get points or stars or a punch card? Absolutely. Does your service or business lend itself to that? How do you reward loyalty? Is there a discount? Is there a free service after so many? You're going to want to reward your customers for choosing you over your competition. Also, segmenting your customers will help you identify new audiences. It'll help you identify where you are and what audience you have currently and how that might expand, or how you might get in front of the next generation of that same audience. So it'll help you identify where the gaps might be and how you can create a new and continuing customer base. Section 3 here is about considering your prices. On the next slide, we need to start talking about how prices affect your ability to bring in cash. On the next slide, it talks a little bit more about our customers again, right? Everything keeps going back to the customer. Habits change, cost shifts, competitors attempt new strategy. So it is a competitive business world. You all know this. There is competition everywhere. So even small differences in prices can mean a big difference in sales and revenue. Make sure you're considering everything that goes into your product or service. For example, accounting software, cleaning services might need to be covered by revenue. Are they currently being built into your prices? If you have a retail location, if you're hiring an outside cleaning service, that's also a cost. So it's not just a certain markup on an item. You also need to factor in all the other costs that come into navigating and helping your business exist and grow. On the next slide, we need to start talking about pricing that's good for both you and your customers. So you can't always be the highest priced, or you can't always be the lowest priced, or maybe your market is that you are a high-end boutique item, or, and maybe that's your competition in your structure. Maybe you are competing on being the lowest price and, deploying a lot of items or services, but you have to find the price that's good for you and your targeted customer base. This also goes back to knowing about your customer, and knowing maybe their general wealth or income levels, because that will help you, kind of determine where your price lands and determine the value that they get from using you as a retailer or a supplier. It really just keeps help narrowing down where your price should be, based on what you know about your client. There are some options that you have in pricing. You could bundle items or services, and that would increase the ticket price, which also increases your revenue. You could put discounts on volume orders or create favorable payment terms for longer commitments. So if you have more favorable payment terms, maybe people would be more inspired to have a longer commitment with you. So just some good options on figuring out some different strategies around pricing. On the next slide, we're going to talk about our fourth and final segment here, where you need to collect on your sales. We can all talk about how important it is to identify your customer, get people in the door, bundle your pricing, make your pricing strategic. But if you don't actually take that money in, this is all for naught. So the next slide states that clear, efficient processes for collecting receivables can help you avoid cash bottlenecks. So again, put on my banker hat. Yes, technology has changed, banking has changed, the way you get paid has changed. So you need to develop a clear, efficient process for collecting your receivables. And that's somewhere we're working with your bank or your banker and knowing what technologies are available and the cost around those technologies is really just going to help you out. It's going to help you get money in faster and more securely. We've heard like the check is in the mail. That check could be lost, it could be delayed. They could have placed a stop payment on the check before you receive it. There's just a lot of uncertainties and issues that goes into sort of more antiquated payment models that maybe you do need to look into options like accepting credit cards, accepting ACH payments, accepting wires. What is it that your customers can use to pay you? And then also ideally, what is it and how is it that you want to be paid so you can improve the speed and velocity at which you're receiving your payments so that then you can redeploy those assets to cover the expenses of the business. On the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about how to improve your receivables process. So you can update your payment policies, like updating your terms, updating when the payments are due. You can invoice faster. So the faster the invoice is sent, the faster that clock starts ticking. So if you're giving 30-day terms, if we invoice the day that the service is provided, then that 30-day clock is starting to tick. So you're getting in money a little bit faster because you're invoicing faster. Monitor and follow up on accounts receivable. And I'll lump that with monitor your bank accounts. That probably seems pretty simple, but absolutely worth saying. Monitor and follow up. Don't let these accounts and these payments get just too far behind. Make sure that it's actually being credited to your bank account. Make sure that it's actually there and liquid. And again, focus on process efficiency. So focus on how you can get paid, what technologies are available, and the cost around those, just so you can focus on getting those payments in, getting them liquid, and getting them ready to reutilize or to even maybe pay yourself. On the next slide, we're going to touch on another topic. Do you have a creative approach in generating revenue that you'd like to share? Just due to the nature of this and our time together, we're going to leave that again as something that you can think about. But do you have a creative approach in generating revenue? Are you working with a networking group that maybe you could bounce this question off of? Do you have friends, family? Maybe you're close with a competitor that you can say, what are you doing to generate revenue? How are you increasing that revenue stream? So something to always be thinking about and keep top of mind, because if you're increasing that revenue stream, then you're increasing the overall success of your business. The next slide references an example. Again, this is something that's in the workbook, so that's something you can review further on your home. More homework. And on the next slide, I will turn it back over to Roy so he can talk about minimizing our cash out.
Thank you, Savannah. So as we know, every business wants to bring in more revenue. We just touched on ways that can happen, of course, but you need to also pay close attention to how cash is being spent with your business. So knowing where and when cash comes out of your account can help you smooth out your spending. So a couple of things here to keep in mind. reevaluating vendor relationships, building a high-performing team, taking a fresh look at real estate, controlling spending on inventory, and getting real value from marketing. These are at least 5 ways that you can help minimize expenditures. Next slide, please. So next slide, I'm sorry. So vendor relationships, has your business changed? Perhaps people stop buying a particular item from your business. Perhaps people are buying not so many items from your business here. So has that changed? Has your cash position changed? Are people slow in paying you now than before? As far as vendors is concerned, have prices on the vendor gone up? Has the quality gone down? Is it taking longer for the vendor to actually deliver? And then if you look at other items here on the options that meet your needs here, does your vendor offer you discounts for bulk orders? Next page, please. So we do have another worksheet here for you to look at on your own. You're going to be able to rate your vendors on product quality, price, and timeliness of delivery. And what's neat about this worksheet here is it's going to kind of recommend whether you should keep that vendor or maybe look at a different option when it comes to vendors. And so again, recommending that after this session here, that you take the time to look through this particular worksheet. Next slide. Again, this is for everyone to kind of review on the workbook. An example here is a fictitious business. Will allow you to read this up on your own. But this is an example here of somebody who pretty much took advantage of bulk orders to help minimize their expenditures. Next slide. So again, when we think of efficiencies here, we think of payroll being about 70% of your total business spending. Important here that we focus on having high-performing teams. A couple of questions to be thinking about here as it pertains to your team is what needs to be done and when? Who needs to do it? What can be automated? Maybe we have somebody who is doing something that can probably be done by some software. What can be done less of? And maybe even thinking what can be outsourced. What you as a business owner can do to maybe delegate. I often talk to business owners that have a hand in everything that they do. And so there's a difference between being a manager of a business and being a leader of a business, and figuring out, is this activity that I'm doing helping me continue to grow the business? So again, delegation that can be also helpful here. Are there gaps in staffing that can be filled by maybe a contractor or even an intern? There's a lot of colleges out there that would love to have their students come in and maybe intern, and probably for free. Is your staffing potentially a staff that can be seasonal? You have maybe particular periods where you're a little bit more busy than others. So once you're looking at all this, you have to determine, well, which employees do I have that are great and I can mold into more effective and efficient employees? And then maybe perhaps you'll think of employees that aren't necessarily moving the needle for you, and maybe even thinking of laying those particular employees off or dismissing them. Next slide. Real estate. Perhaps you are renting a big space, and now with things the way they are, you're looking at maybe a smaller space. And so kind of making sure that that location that you have is still delivering on what it is that you need. Can you renegotiate your lease? Maybe the landlord is up to maybe a renegotiation of that lease. Maybe it's time for you to think of owning your own space. This may be an option as well. So looking at that real estate is definitely another way to help minimize expenditures. Next slide, please. Inventory. I would say inventory is a big piece here of cash flow management. Too much inventory ties up cash. And so are you a business that pretty much does everything for everybody? And in doing that, you're keeping on items on inventory that, again, aren't selling as much and are tying up cash. And so you'll see, I've gone to retailers where they have an item, but maybe not in my size, but they're willing to order that item and have it sent to the home, and shipping may be included. Maybe that's something that you can think of as an option when it comes to inventory. Do you know what your inventory turnaround statistics are? If I have 20,000 of these items, how long does it take me to kind of get those 20,000 out of the door, if you will? So keeping those things in mind, there is software out there that can help you with inventory management. Next slide, please. This is also another piece here that's on the workbook of a, and again, these entities are fictitious entities, but just to drive the point on entities that have focused on certain items that we're covering and how it resulted for them. In this case, this individual did some different things with inventory that allowed that inventory, that allowed the expenses to lower based on the inventory management. Next slide, please. And the fifth and last here is, and again, these are at least five that you could be doing, but focusing on your marketing efforts. Maybe trying online advertising, collecting stats on that, maybe trying it for 60 to 90 days, collecting stats on that, maybe trying a email your client campaign for maybe 3 months, collecting stats on that, maybe trying the old-fashioned, sending out bulletins in the market area that you're in, collecting stats on that, and then kind of looking at those maybe 3 or 4 different things that you're doing and saying, based on the stats that I've collected, doing this effort yielded a little bit more bump in sales. Again, the longer you do something, the more stats you collect, the better you may be able to decipher here which option's best for you. Next slide. Again, another example here of a person who was doing something, wasn't selling, and based on a couple of tweaks, ended up selling their products like hotcakes. And so, again, just take the time to read this, and you'll see how just small changes can make the world of a difference. I'll turn it back over to my colleague Savannah to take us home here. Savannah.
I almost didn't come off mute. We can go ahead and advance to the next slide. This is kind of bringing us towards the end of this presentation. We hope you realize that recognizing how money moves through your business has never been more important, right? So how money is moving through your business is important for paying yourself, your vendors, your bills, keeping your business open and running like a well-oiled machine. So analyzing your cash flow and making adjustments is a critical step in strengthening the fundamentals and foundation of your business. On the next slide, I'd like to just remind you, as we referenced earlier, you can always go to chase.com/cash flow analysis to take advantage of the cash flow analysis tool. And that is a complimentary service. So that will let you see the ups and downs of your cash flow over the course of the year and strategize when to increase revenues or cut costs. On the next slide, we're going to circle back to that survey that we talked about here at the beginning. So after this course, you feel more confident about your ability to manage cash flow. So hopefully, you feel just a little bit more confident about your ability and the necessity of managing the cash flow of your business. And finally, one last question there to think about: what's one cash flow strategy that you will start in the next week? Will you start knowing your customers more? Will you start segmenting them? Will you start a loyalty program? Will you increase or decrease your marketing spend? What is it that you've taken from this presentation that you can take and utilize and start working on your cash flow strategy within the next week? So we appreciate your time today. And at this point, we'd like to open it up for questions.
Well, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Just taking a look through there now. We'll give everyone a few seconds, a few minutes to get their questions in. Thank you for a great presentation, by the way.
Thank you. This is just really an important topic and something that we're questioned on a lot. And it's important to help your business grow and thrive. But also, too, to be very honest, it's something that's considered if you're exploring bank lending, right? So we're going to look, I'll pull the curtain back a little bit. One of the secrets is, yes, you are going to be asked about days cash on hand. If you did not take in one more dollar starting today, how long is your business functional? So that's a measure of your business when it comes to the bank. How is your cash flow operating? And one thing, too, a typical solution for cash flow issues is a line of credit. So that is a tool that you can keep in your toolbox as well. But you're going to need to take these fundamentals and really work on your cash flow so that you are in a position to obtain a line of credit, either from like a bank or CDFI or other source.
Great, thank you. I'm getting lots of thank yous, great information. Thanks for the information. Let's see. Any advice on improving a wealthy mindset to achieve cash flow in business?
Could we expand on the improving a wealthy mindset? I'm trying to kind of figure out what that wealthy mindset entails.
Sure, Tawana, if you want to add a little more detail in the chat, that would be great.
Or I can surmise here that means,
You have to believe and value your skills.
So I would say, again, if we're looking at your ability as a person to run a business, hopefully I'm answering this correctly here. I think, as you mentioned there, believing in what it is that you have skill-wise, believing in the why of your business. Again, I think business owners as a whole go into business having this strong passion and belief for what it is that they do. Maybe they worked at a landscaping company for years, and the opportunity became apparent to open up their own business, and they themselves are now thrust in, doing this for themselves. Well, they know about landscaping, but do they know about running the business? And so having that mindset of bringing people into the fold that can help you with the management of that business. And again, not forgetting that, pretty much increasing how you get paid and slowing who you get paid, who pays you, is going to help, or maximizing how you get paid, minimizing your payments are going to be the effective way to get that business to that next level. Hopefully I answered that, Tawana.
Great, thank you. Another question. What are the top mistakes you see business owners make around cash flow?
Yeah, there's a lot. So I would say the biggest one that we see is not understanding your payment terms. So like, right, if you're a retailer and you get an opportunity with a big box store and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna be in Target. Like that's amazing. And that's such a great feeling. Um, but Target is not someone who's coming in your store and purchasing this item. You are paid via credit card with this item and they leave. There are terms and there are contracts and they are going to take a while to pay you. So really understanding the terms of how you get paid, the way that they're going to pay you are they paying you with a credit card? Because there's a processing fee for that. Are they going to pay you with a check, which we would probably advise against, but there might be like a hold time on that. Are they going to pay you with a wire? Does your account accept wires? Do you know your wire instructions? So understanding how you're going to be paid, the terms of those payments, like how long it's going to take. Are there any sort of like milestones in the middle, or is it once they receive all of the items, are you then going to receive payments in 30, 60, 90 days later? Because that, generating your product or service and then waiting 90 days to get paid, you're putting out a lot of money in the front and you're waiting quite a while to get it on the back end. So how are you going to navigate that time between incurring the expense and receiving payment? So I would say understanding your contracts, understanding your options, and understanding the cost and the ways to receive payment. So those would kind of be my advice around what to do, and the mistakes that we typically see is just maybe not understanding that.
And then Savannah, just to add on to that, on that side, understanding the terms. On the other side is, what options are you as a business owner giving to get paid? Is it just cash? Again, I'll say this, I've been to restaurants where they don't take a credit card. I love their food. I'll pay cash, but most likely won't return because I'm more of a credit card user. And so if you are limiting the way in which your options of getting paid, that can also be a cause for a client not to choose your establishment. So keeping that in mind as well.
Great, thank you. I am a freelance copywriter, and I've heard that offering payment plans can be helpful to business owners because it helps with cash flow. What should I know about structuring a payment plan like that to make it work better for clients?
Yeah, so I would say it can help your cash flow. It predominantly more helps the cash flow of the person that's paying you, right? Because then they know that they're paying a set amount. It's decreasing, minimizing cash out for them on a monthly basis, because now they know that they have a smaller payment instead of this larger payment due in 1 month. They can divide that over 5, 6 months, a year, whatever your payment terms are. When you're structuring that, that's kind of where you'll also want to look at that cash flow analyzer tool, because you need to look at what your expenses are and what your needs are. Do you have expenses or seasonality when you have higher expenses, lower income? So you'll want to look at that and then say, okay, can I structure it that way? Does it work for me to not get paid, $500 a month over 6 months versus a lump sum payment now? Is that going to help me attract more customers? Would more people want to work with me if I'm able to improve their cash flow while maybe hurting mine a little bit? It helps your cash flow in the sense that, you've got money coming in. As long as they're paying their bills, right, you've got a payment coming in every month, every quarter, every year, whatever that payment structure is, that can help you. But also maybe having the cash up front is going to help with like your seasonality or your payments. So it's really just something that you have to analyze within your own business. And it's something I would call you back to look at that analyzer tool so you can see where your outflows are. And then when you're structuring or negotiating the terms of that contract, utilizing that so you can say, this is what I need. Now, how do I work that back into the negotiations and make that work for me and for my business?
And to piggyback on that, that Savannah's also talking about, again, looking at, contractors often do this where, if you're looking at getting something completed, maybe collecting 50% of that up front. And when half of it is done, maybe another 25%. And when you're completely done, you're completing the 25%, making 100% payment. Again, advanced tools, again, the banker hat, as Savannah mentioned earlier, is do you have perhaps a vehicle, a tool that can help you smooth out cash flow? So maybe using a credit card, if you have a zero balance and you use a credit card to purchase things, you can buy yourself 30 days time interest free. So maybe is that tool at your disposition to help smooth out not having money on hand? So there's a couple of options there, and hopefully with what Savannah and I have mentioned, that helps clarify a little bit.
Great, thank you. If there's any other questions, we'll give you another minute or two to put it in the chat or the Q&A. How should you determine your cash on hand number?
The cash on hand number is pretty much what you've collected and minus what you've spent that month. That would be what you have on hand.
Well, and then also to calculate days cash on hand, it's really just that. How many days does your business function based on the amount of cash that you have? So for like simple math, right? If we have $100 in the bank, and then our rent is $10 and our payroll is $20, and that's over the course of the month, then we divide that over days and see how many days we have to facilitate those expenses versus the amount that we actually have in the bank. So it's taking the amount of expenses you have over the course of the month, dividing it into a daily cost basis, and then seeing how many days that is that you have with actual cash on hand.
Great, thanks. Follow-up question. Should you have a set cash on hand number that you want to have month to month?
Yeah, so there's old school advice, there's new school advice, there's there's the generic, it depends on your industry. But yes, it does depend on your industry. I would say too, what we've seen, historic guidance was probably like 6 months cash on hand. With inventory and the climate change and just the ways that things are working, that's probably more like 3 months at this point. It does depend on your industry. It depends on how much inventory you need to have. It depends on how your customers expect you to facilitate their needs. I would say a good measure and kind of the way that we provide guidance at this point through a banking perspective is 3 months cash on hand is like a pretty good number. If you're in a higher risk industry or a very lumpy industry, you might want more days cash on hand, but a good set number is 3 months cash on hand. So 90 days cash on hand.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? We'll give it another minute. Lots of
And I
thank yous.
appreciate the questions, the thank yous, the feedback. This is awesome. It made doing this on a Friday morning so worth it.
Right.
I would say too, look at our minority entrepreneur webpage. Look at that. If you're a new startup and this information is super valuable to you, there's a ton of information ready and available there. There's some recordings and videos and different talks and things like that. If you are ready to have like a dedicated coach or mentor, fill out the section there. You will be contacted by one of us here in Chicago so that we can work directly with you. So if you are ready to take that next step, or if you want more resources, just look us up and we will be happy to reach out and connect and share information like this.
That's great. Thank you so much for that. And I also put information in the chat about business licensing, our small business certificate program. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted on BACP's YouTube page. And also there was questions about the worksheet. We will email that out to everyone who attended today. So don't worry about that. And I think that is all the questions. So I want to thank you both for such great information. Lots and lots of great information, very helpful. What's the URL for the startup that just came in?
I was gonna say, I think it's chase.com/business consultant.
And if for any questions, you can always email bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org, and I'll make sure I get it to the presenters. So that's bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org.
Great. And then also, yes, I did confirm it is chase.com/business consultant. We
Okay,
just
great.
updated the URL, but chase.com/business consultant. That will get you the resources for startups. Everyone can use those resources. And also at the bottom, you can fill in a questionnaire, like a little thing to provide your contact information to request to be contacted. So do that. Hopefully we'll talk again soon. And I really
Awesome.
appreciate all of you.
One last plug. We have a free small business expo tomorrow at Truman College in the McKeon lobby from 10 to 2. Please come visit us. All great resources to start and grow your business here in the city of Chicago. So I want to thank both presenters again. Thank you so much. Thank you attendees. I hope everyone has a safe and happy weekend.
Thank you.
Bye.